I never thought my own brother would betray me in such a bold, careless way. Imagine walking outside, ready to head to work, only to find the driveway empty, your car gone. At first, I thought it was stolen, but the truth was much worse. My own brother had sold it. Not borrowed it. Not moved it. He sold it behind my back without even asking. The moment I heard the words come out of his mouth, I felt my stomach drop. Anger surged through me, mixed with disbelief. How could someone who grew up under the same roof, someone who knew how much that car meant to me, treat me like I didn't matter at all? The car wasn't just a set of wheels. It was my independence, my hard work, my late nights and early mornings rolled into one. And in an instant, he decided it was his to trade away like a used toy. I stood there frozen, trying to process the audacity. Did he really think I wouldn't find out? Did he think I'd just let it slide? That was the moment I knew one thing for sure: he may have thought he'd gotten away with something, but he had no idea what was coming next. Because while he thought he'd scored quick cash, I was already planning my move, the one that would leave me with the last laugh. To really understand why this betrayal cut so deep, you need to know a little about me and my brother. I've always been the type who works hard for everything I have. Nothing was ever handed to me on a silver platter. In high school, while most kids were spending weekends hanging out, I was juggling part-time jobs, bussing tables, mowing lawns, and later, working long shifts at a grocery store. Every dollar I made, I tucked away with one goal in mind: to buy my own car. That car wasn't just transportation. It was my freedom. The day I finally drove it off the lot, it felt like all the sacrifices, all the skipped outings with friends, all the late nights grinding just to save money, it was all worth it. That car symbolized my independence, my responsibility, and my determination to build something for myself. Now, my brother was the complete opposite. Don't get me wrong, I love him, but anyone who knows him would agree, he's selfish, reckless, and constantly looking for shortcuts. While I was out hustling for my goals, he was blowing through his allowance on video games, sneakers, and nights out. Whenever he ran out of money, he'd turn to me, to our parents, or to anyone gullible enough to lend him a few bucks, always promising to pay it back, but never really following through. It wasn't that he couldn't work. He just didn't want to. Responsibility wasn't in his vocabulary. To him, life was all about instant gratification. Why work for something when you could pressure someone else into giving it to you? And despite his track record, my parents always gave him the benefit of the doubt. He'll grow out of it, they'd say. He just needs time. Meanwhile, I was expected to be the responsible one. I didn't mind, until his bad habits started interfering with my life. That's what makes this so much worse. My car wasn't some family spare. It wasn't a gift from mom or dad. It was mine, every cent of it earned by me. And he knew that. He saw me sacrifice, he saw me hustle, he knew exactly how much that car meant to me. Which is why, when I discovered he had sold it without permission, the betrayal stung even deeper. It wasn't just about the car. It was about the utter disregard for everything I had worked for. And at that point, I realized, if he was willing to cross that line, there was no telling how far he would go next. Before I tell you how the confrontation went down, make sure to hit that like button if you've ever dealt with a selfish sibling. I'm curious how many of us have been in the same boat. The moment I found out my brother had sold my car, I stormed into the house. My voice was already trembling with anger as I shouted his name. He was sprawled on the couch, playing video games, like nothing in the world was wrong. "Where's my car?" I demanded, standing right in front of him. He barely looked up. "Relax. Don't freak out." "Don't freak out? My car is gone." "Where is it?" He set the controller down, finally making eye contact. His expression was calm, almost smug. "I sold it." For a second, I just stood there, silent. I couldn't believe he said it so casually, like he was telling me he ate the last slice of pizza. "You did what?" I snapped. "I sold it," he repeated, shrugging. "I needed the money. You needed the money? That car wasn't yours to sell. That car was mine. Do you even understand what you've done? He leaned back on the couch, completely unfazed. Look, I know you're mad, but I had no choice. I needed the cash for something important. I narrowed my eyes. What could possibly be so important that you thought stealing and selling my car was okay? He paused, then said, I owed some people. If I didn't pay them back, things were going to get ugly. I shook my head, furious. So you dug yourself into a hole with your stupid choices and decided to drag me down with you? Do you even realize how much work I put into that car? Do you care at all? Instead of showing remorse, he smirked. You'll be fine. You're always fine. You'll figure something out. I didn't have another option. That line hit me like a slap in the face. According to him, my effort, my sacrifice, my independence, none of it mattered. The argument grew louder and louder until our parents came rushing into the living room. What's going on here? My mom demanded. I pointed straight at him. He sold my car without even asking me. My dad frowned, looking at my brother. Is that true? He didn't even flinch. I didn't steal it. I just borrowed it in a way. I needed the money for something serious. It wasn't like I had another option. You call that borrowing? I shouted. Borrowing means you ask and you give it back. He sold it. It's gone. My mom sighed, already rubbing her temples. Calm down. Let's not make this bigger than it is. Bigger than it is? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They act like he borrowed my phone charger, not like he sold the one thing I worked years to buy. He said he needed it for something important, my dad said firmly. I'm sure he'll find a way to pay you back eventually. Pay me back? I scoffed. Do you realize how much that car was worth? He's not going to pay me back. He never pays anyone back. But they didn't want to hear it. To them, it was just another one of his mistakes. Another mess they'd rather sweep under the rug than deal with head-on. Honestly, I felt so alone in that moment. And if you're still watching, it tells me you're really into this story, so go ahead and subscribe, because I've got plenty more family drama tales you won't want to miss. My brother, of course, seized the moment. See? I told you they'd understand, he said with a smirk. You're overreacting. I wanted to scream. My parents were practically excusing the whole thing, and he knew it. He knew he could get away with anything because no matter what he did, they'd always cushion his fall. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. My blood boiled at the thought of him getting away with this. I could still hear his smug voice echoing in my head, you'll be fine. You'll figure something out. He thought he had won. He thought he had stripped me of my independence, left me helpless. But he had no idea I was already forming a plan. I wasn't going to scream anymore. I wasn't going to waste my breath trying to convince my parents how wrong he was. Instead, I would wait. I would watch. And when the moment was right, I would make sure he learned a lesson he'd never forget. The best part? He wouldn't even see it coming. I knew yelling at him wasn't going to solve anything. My parents had made it clear they weren't going to step in, and my brother was far too arrogant to admit he was wrong. So, I did the one thing he didn't expect, I stayed quiet. Stick around, because what I did next completely flipped the script. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. On the outside, it looked like I dropped the issue. I stopped arguing, stopped demanding answers. He thought he had won, but in reality, I was preparing my move. The first thing I did was dig out the paperwork from when I bought the car. Every receipt, every registration document, every insurance slip, all in my name, and only my name. I organized everything into a folder and took it straight to the police station. When I explained the situation, the officer's face said it all. So, he sold your car without permission? He asked, double-checking the documents. Yes, I said firmly. This car belongs to me. He had no legal right to sell it. With the proof in hand, they opened a case for theft and fraud. I didn't have to lift another finger, the law would do the work for me. It didn't take long before the reality of what he'd done came crashing down on him. The people who bought the car? They were contacted and told the sale was invalid. Since the car was mine legally, it had to be returned. My brother was left standing there, humiliated, when the officers explained that he had no authority to sell it in the first place. When the car was finally brought back, I felt an overwhelming rush of relief. Not only did I get my car back, but I also got to watch the look on his face as everything unraveled. The smug grin he once wore had completely vanished. My parents, who had dismissed the situation as not that big of a deal, suddenly realized just how serious it was. My brother wasn't just irresponsible, he had broken the law. And now, there was no sweeping it under the rug. I'll never forget the moment the officers told him, "You're lucky your sibling isn't pressing full charges. Otherwise, you'd be facing a criminal record." His face went pale. For the first time in his life, he couldn't talk his way out of it. That was my victory. He thought he could take something I worked years to earn and treat it like his own. But in the end, the law sided with me. And watching him sit there, exposed, humiliated, and powerless, that was the sweetest justice I could have asked for. In the end, I got more than just my car back. I gained something far more valuable: respect. My brother learned, in the most humiliating way possible, that he couldn't just walk all over me and expect no consequences. For the first time, my parents also saw him for who he really was. They couldn't defend him anymore, not after he nearly landed himself in legal trouble. And while they didn't say it out loud, I knew they finally understood the difference between being the responsible one and being the reckless one. As for my brother, the fallout was brutal. Not only did he have to face the humiliation of being caught, but he also lost the trust of everyone around him. No more borrowing, no more excuses, no more safety net. He was on his own, and he knew it. And me? I drove my car back into the driveway with my head held high, knowing he'd see it there every single day as a reminder of his failure. The same car he thought he'd stolen from me was now proof that I'd beaten him at his own game, without raising my voice, without sinking to his level, and without letting him win. He thought he had stripped me of my independence. Instead, I walked away stronger, wiser, and with a last laugh. So, in the end, my brother lost my trust, and I gained the last laugh. What about you? Have you ever been betrayed by family and turned the tables? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to read them. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because more unbelievable family dramas are coming your way.